When I work in the emergency room, I see all the time people will always sacrifice their happiness for security and affirmation. They want to know that they're secure, things are okay, and they want to know that they're a good person for doing it. So the first thing that they'll do, if I tell them they've got cancer, when do I start my chemotherapy? That's not a pathway to happiness, okay? And if I ask people too, if your main goal is happiness, why would you get into a random political fight with complete strangers on the internet? That is not a pathway to happiness. Keeping up with this happiness as a main and primary goal is unattainable in a 24/7 situation. It's actually delusional. So how is it that we obtain that happiness at any time? Well, one is a quick fixes. Anybody notice that after the 1950s, 1960s, there was an absolute explosion of drug epidemics? Number one, cocaine, right? Number two, amphetamines. Now we're settling on to fentanyl. And you notice that the mentally ill are ending up back where? And in the prisons where they started out. Obviously, you're scourged by God, so you need to be punished the same way. And we get a full cycle of thinking. The secondary thing is if you're not obtaining it from there, you might be obtaining it from the emergency departments or the medical establishment as a whole. We have come to this idea that anything that is uncomfortable should be banished from our system. Now, pain and anxiety started to be treated like a disease. We need to get rid of them, okay? But pain and anxiety are both messengers, and it's something to pay attention to. To sit there and say I'm in pain means something has changed. Anything that changes in your system will cause an ounce of pain of one way or another. Chronic pain means that something has changed structurally to the point that your body is in constant alarm mode. The secondary thing is anxiety. Anxiety means something is about to change. You have a sense, an apprehension that there's going to be some change or some movement within your body or within your physiology that needs to be addressed. And I can also tell you, for the need of security and affirmation, this is why religion, the Bible's and the Gospels, and actually Christ's message itself is the most important. Why? God is always there for you, right? But those things need to be built up inside of you where you have a sense of security, and that affirmation needs to match what your perception is of your achievement. So the way to do that, first and foremost, is achieve, right? You get out and keep moving, keep building, and keep achieving, and your own affirmation will start to build quite a bit, okay? You notice that the participation trophies didn't work out at all. People wanted to give affirmation for just showing up, and that didn't incite people to actually move more, achieve more, or do better. Just gave them another piece of plastic to throw in the closet and be done with it. So that affirmation has to match what you feel, right? So if I come up and say, you're the most beautiful woman in the world, and would you believe that as an affirmation? And say, I'm not the most beautiful, not top 5, obviously. You know? But that affirmation has to match with exactly where you are at any given time. When people have started to go over towards this, just pushing towards happiness, notice how things changed, right? So a couple more examples. Somebody goes off to war. Why do they do that, right? It's not happiness. There's nothing happy involved with that. But security, I want to provide security for my country. Affirmation, I'm going to build up in rank. I'm going to receive a medal or an honor of some sort for what I have achieved and what I have done. Secondary thing, people would go to school. And initially, they would go to school with a degree that meant a marketable skill that they could then use for the rest of their life and provide job security. However, and in the same time, they would try to make Dean's List or honor roll. They would try to affirm their name with a prestigious institution. Look, I went to Harvard. Look, I went to Yale. That way they can provide themselves with that same affirmation that they went to a prestigious school. And now it's changed because we've done the propaganda with happiness. How many people have had kids or grandkids that have gone to college and don't care what major they take? And in fact, it almost seems like there's sexual gratification and alcohol or drug use that is the primary goal, education being a far, far second or last, right? Relationships have changed, where sexual gratification has become the pinnacle, if not the only portion of relationship that a lot of the younger people are having. They don't understand how to make that bond that connects directly with them. So to make that formulary bond in between people in society, they're losing that almost completely. My belief in this is what has been perceived by every society in our history of our culture. And that fact is that we have an energy and everything around us is energy. That energy interconnects us. It interconnects me and you and me and you. It connects all of us. Every culture and every civilization has been aware of it. Native Americans have an understanding that there is a spirit and energy in every rock and tree, and they all have names. If I was going to China or in towards Japan, we'd be studying about the Tao. And in the Tao, they would tell me about the Qi, this interconnected energy. If I was in India, they would talk to me about the karma. The karma is an interconnected energy that presupposes justice. Now, there's no proof of justice in our world. Nothing seems fair, which means that the pure justice comes from God itself. So transcendent to that, we would sit there and say, our understanding of the energy that interconnects all of us is the Holy Spirit, right? And so that interconnected energy provides us a security together because we know that we're housed together in society and then we all benefit each other when we can. So we can build that and develop affirmation because there is an interconnected unit. Now there's two types of energy and there's one formulated law, right? So the formulated law is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed. And there's two types of energy. One is potential energy, and two is kinetic energy. So potential energy is a buildup of what can be. If I set a rock at the top of the hill, it has a lot of potential energy. If I roll the rock down the hill, that potential energy is changed into kinetic. It's actually moving now. If I'm taking a bow and arrow and I pull that bow across, that is a lot of potential energy right there. And when I let it go, it's kinetic as it takes off. My belief and my understanding, just from what I know of the Bible, religion, and what it all teaches us, is what God did was actually create infinite potential energy. That's what it is, infinite potential energy. Then he changed that potential energy into kinetic, made it into physical form, developed, built, okay? Then in his likeness and image, what does that mean? Well, he created a species that through free will can continue to convert potential energy into kinetic. It's riddled all through the Bible, and you hear this messaging, don't hide your light behind a bushel. Let it shine, let it grow. Reap more than what you sow. Go out and plant, develop, and actually build further and more. Go forth, be fruitful and multiply. Isn't having a child the biggest form of changing potential energy into kinetic? That's a life form that was just potential that has now become kinetic. If you want to judge for yourself, are my decisions good? Are my decisions not so good? One, don't worry about whether they bring you happiness or not, okay? Because if as a fundamental determination it's bringing you happiness, I guarantee you, it's bringing the opposite to a lot of the people around you. The second thing is, am I building potential energy into kinetic? If you're going around talking and gossiping about somebody, you're bringing down that person's kinetic energy. You're stopping them from movement. Murder itself, obviously, would be the biggest sin because it's destroying that kinetic energy. Okay, so who can tell me how or what way we use to develop the most kinetic energy out of potential? And it comes in one word. What was it?
Love.
Love. That was it. She nailed it. Okay? Love itself. Go out, love your God with your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole soul. you build more of that energy. You want to interconnect with other people, love your neighbor as yourself. So you can determine in every step that you make and every decision that you take, okay? Am I building kinetic energy out of potential? And if the answer to that is yes, almost every time, I guarantee you're going down the right path.